Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. It's episode 2712 of The Tom Woods Show, and as you can see, those of you watching on video, it's old Scott Horton once again. I'm very glad to talk to Scott, who is, he's got every title in the world. I mean, he's worked forever with antiwar.com, but of course he is director of the Libertarian Institute, which is the greatest thing in the history of the world in terms of, if you look at the ratio of budget to accomplishments or accomplishments to budget. I don't know how you want to look at the ratio, but however you do it, it's really impressive what goes on. Libertarianinstitute.org. I sit on the board over there very proudly. Scott also directs the brand new Scott Horton Academy of Foreign Policy and Freedom, which is fantastic. Fantastic. This is where you learn it all step by step, and you can go out into the world as a little mini Scott Horton, which is just what the world needs. Tiny Scott Hortons pecking away at the edifice of lies that is brainwashing Americans all over the place. So, Scott, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom. I admit I'm 5'8" and about $135, so most of your audience is going to be bigger than me. However, they could learn a lot from the foreign policy, the academy here that we've set up. So thank you very much for that very kind introduction there. My
pleasure. ScottHortonAcademy.com. That is having a Black Friday sale this week, this being Black Friday week. So by the time you hear this, probably that will be up. So ScottHortonAcademy.com. You want to get in on the ground floor on this, baby.
That's right. We've had a very bountiful harvest this season, so we're going to have a good old turkey day this year.
Yeah, good for Scott is doing well, everybody. And that's because, number one, we all want to support Scott because he's a great guy. But secondly, we all want to learn from him because no matter how smart we are, we don't know nothing compared to Scott. And ScottHortonAcademy.com is where you can go do that. So let's talk about...
my new show is taking off too, man. I'm the co-host of Provoked with Daryl Cooper.
Yes, yeah. With Daryl Cooper.
And we're doing better all the time. Everybody's loving that show. It's just mostly me asking Daryl what he thinks about things, which is a lot of fun.
I remember Halloween night, I unexpectedly had to... It's a long story. One of my kids wanted to trick-or-treat at another person's house. That's okay. So I went to go pick her up, and what was there to serenade me but the voices of Daryl Cooper and Scott Horton on Provoked, which I was listening to in the car as you were doing it on X or whatever was going on. So thank you for that.
Awesome, dude.
All right. Okay, so let's talk here. Let's say I got a list of things of what's going on in the world that I have not talked to Scott Horton about. Now, a lot of us had something to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene and what happened to her, and then her sudden announcement that she's resigning from Congress effective the beginning of January. That was a little bit of a surprise. I did not see that coming at all. And she wrote this letter, this official statement explaining what the problems are in Washington, how frustrating it is, and why she made the decision. And a lot of people have been trying to figure out, well, what's really going on? What's really motivating her? Is she trying to position herself for some other more ambitious office in the future? Was she bribed? Was she threatened? I've heard all these theories. I'm rather inclined to take her at her word. But what do you think, Scott?
Well, I really didn't know what to think. I guess my original thing was that she was afraid. I'm sure that she must have gotten just random threats from kooks going up against Trump the way she did and having him go after her the way he did. Although then again, I think she's probably got pretty thick skin and is pretty used to that by now. So that probably wasn't it. I think the smartest take that I saw was from my friend Ryan Dawson, who wrote on his Substack that this was a strategic move by her and a smart one. Because instead of fighting a bruising primary battle against a Trump-funded opponent that could hurt her reputation and put her further, at odds with the president, and also instead of somehow trying to remain loyal to him even after he's beating up on her this badly and everything like that, she can just step out of the conflict and essentially preserve her political equity to be spent later on for better purposes, whether it's to get herself elected to the Senate or even to run for president and ultimately vice president with J.D. Vance in a few years or a couple of years now, or, anything like that, keeping her options open. And that was actually very wise for her to do that. Because even though, like, say, for example, maybe she could have won her primary, but only with a big busted lip, right? Only with a lot of trouble. And so maybe it's smart to just go ahead and back out. After all, she's just a lowly little old member of the House pitted up against the President of the United States. And so I could see the wisdom in it if, from that point of view. I'm not sure.
If that's the way she's thinking, yeah. And so the thinking also would be that she kind of preserves her position now as being one of a handful of more or less universally recognized spokesmen of a certain wing of this right-wing movement. I mean, whatever it is, the
MAGA.
America First. Whatever you want to call it, but maybe it's that.
Trump is never Trump now. She's still a Trump type.
He's never Trump. Yeah, exactly. So, but on the other hand, then we had this post by her insisting that she would never run for president. Now let's all acknowledge here, it's not exactly unheard of for somebody to insist he's not running for something and then go ahead and run for that thing.
Yeah.
So we can. But she was really lighting into people who suggested that she had presidential ambitions. She said, absolutely not. I would be out of my mind even to think about it.
Which is fair too, right? Like, you got to really kind of be nuts to go for that one.
Yeah.
Then again, that's not denying that she might think of herself as a potential pretty good senator one day. You know what I mean? So I don't think she's done. I don't know how interested she is in, local politics in Georgia, state politics. If she wants to run for governor, something like that. But she'd be great in the Senate. And, she does have very much that everyman, genuine persona, right? She's not a politician. She's a lady who ran for Congress because she was into this Trump stuff.
Right.
So, people recognize that for what it is, that she's a real human. She's,
Glenn Greenwald keeps saying the same thing, that she's like the citizen legislator that the founding fathers kind of imagined, because she really was a normal person and she broke with what she was doing to go do this.
Right.
And she went into it with, some of the boilerplate positions, including on Israel. Like she did not distinguish herself in any way on that matter. And it was only after weird experiences that she came to change her mind. Now, as it happens, Scott,
that too. I used to just think, oh God, this lady, her and Lauren Boebert and whoever these people, like, there's an endless parade of right-wing Republican fools who believe and regurgitate whatever they're told. And I sprain my eye muscles rolling my eyes at their garbage so much of the time.
Yeah.
But then it's like, no, man, I was wrong. Maybe I should have just written her a letter 4 years ago and said, lady, I can tell you're a good person and you just believe a bunch of stuff, but what if I let you know the following few things?
Yeah.
Might have made a difference, right? Here's someone that I wrote off who turns out is actually really courageous and really great when it comes down to it. So
sometimes, Scott, people, there are things that are so deeply embedded, people need to see the truth for themselves. And like we want to put it in front of them. And it's just a weird analogy, but one of my daughters years ago had no self-esteem at all. And there was no good reason for this. She had every good quality in the world. And so her dad would dutifully give her the lecture about all her wonderful qualities. And I would list them all for her. And I made precisely no headway. But then as time went on and she developed a big friend network and she started having a lot of successes socially and otherwise, she began to think, oh, you know what? Maybe I am okay. And all my lectures didn't do anything. It was her experience with the real world that did it. I mean, it doesn't matter how it comes about as long as the happy result occurred. But I wonder if this is one of those things she had to just go through the ringer and see it.
Yeah. And look, for me, I started learning about this stuff a bit in the late 90s and early 2000s, but it was really Iraq War II. When I learned about the neoconservative cult and how their whole little, axis of crystal, as Justin called it, that their whole move to lie us into war with Iraq was really for Israel. The one reason that they didn't emphasize to the American people was to benefit a foreign nation. I've had the grudge since then, and I paid close attention during the Lebanon War in 2006, for example, and all the different so-called mowing the lawn operations in 08 and 12 and whatever. I lost track of them all at different times. In 14 was a big one. But I think, and 14 was the first one where it was really started to get around on Twitter and Facebook that, wow, those poor Palestinians are being bombed to smithereens while the Israelis are actually in no real danger at all, kind of thing. But this one is the one that just, as I'm sure you've seen this clip of the lady, the Obama speechwriter lady saying, oh, it's so difficult to just get through this wall of carnage, the wall of dead children in everybody's social media feed. It's so difficult to make our argument through that. And like, yeah, that's right.
And she said, all these young people, including young Jews, they've been exposed to all this footage. And so I sound obscene, she said. I sound obscene trying to defend it because all they've seen is this stuff. Now, all over Twitter, by the way, are friends of hers saying, oh, she's a wonderful person and it's terrible that people are just taking her out of context. Listen, buddy, I sat through 2 minutes of this nonsense. There is no way you could contextualize that to mean anything other than what it obviously did mean.
Yeah. Well, she went on to say that it's just such a lamentable tragedy that they spent so much effort, the Israel lobby, I guess, overall, pushing the lessons of the Holocaust and the slogan, never again. And how it is so sad that people took that to mean that when powerful people are killing helpless people, that you're supposed to side with the helpless people against the powerful ones. When that wasn't the lesson. The lesson of never again, of course, is that Israeli Jews can kill whoever they want. That's the lesson. And oh my God, isn't it so ironic, Tom, that people see the Palestinians as being in the position of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto and the Israelis as the National Socialists slaughtering them with impunity? Just because it's a perfect analogy. They see it that way, you know? And then she says, and especially, yeah, because Jewish kids are seeing this in their day schools. And so we need to ban cell phones. No Jewish kids should be allowed to have phones until they're 18. That way we can teach them that this stuff isn't true. Like, that's really her best idea. This is an Obama speechwriter going on. Hurwitz is her name. And then everybody's saying, yes, preach it, sister. Keep explaining the Zionist point of view to us more. Then she has another one that Caitlin Johnstone pointed out, where she's demanding that American and other Jews around the world be loyal to Israel first. And she says this would be absurd if someone asked American Christians to be loyal to other Christians in other countries first. But that's different because we are like siblings. And as Caitlin Johnstone points out, if anyone accuses American Jews of having dual loyalty like that, that's under the new official legal definition of anti-Semitism.
Oh, yeah, you cannot say that. Yeah.
She's demanding it. You know, she's demanding what American Jews are usually falsely accused of, which is putting Israel before the United States, which some American Jews are very Zionist and even recognizing that Israel's interests are different than those of Americans. There's at least, I don't know, a third of American Jews who don't care about Israel or their interests whatsoever. I don't know what the latest polls are, but I know in the past there have been millions of American Jews who don't give a damn what, don't even know where Israel is. They're Americans after all,
Hey gang, take it from Old Woods. Here's how to save some serious dough this Christmas while getting your friends and loved ones something you know they'll enjoy. Nobody's going to be unhappy when you give the gift of steak. During Omaha Steaks Sizzle All the Way sale, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And because you're a Tom Woods listener, you can take another $35 off with promo code WOODS at checkout. Omaha Steaks delivers an exclusive lineup of USDA-certified tender steaks, and their fan-favorite filet mignons have achieved the distinction of USDA-certified very tender. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, cozy and convenient comfort meals, and delectable desserts. Omaha Steaks has been America's butcher since 1917. The Woods family first started getting Omaha Steaks delivered at least 15 years ago, and the convenience and value can't be beat. Plus, orders placed by 6 p.m. Eastern ship same day. Save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide. during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code WOODS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code WOODS. It's weird. Lately, maybe this has been going on for a long time and I just haven't been paying attention. But it sure seems to me like lately there are more and more video clips of people like her saying things that if I said them, people would say, well, why do you have this animus toward Jews? And I would say, well, I don't. I'm just stating the obvious. But they're saying it like it's a source of pride. You know, that
it's a panic is what it is. I mean, they're really losing control of the narrative. They're trying to figure out, I mean, the fail-safe has always been to just call everyone Nazi or anti-Semite, but they've just worn that out. It's just like calling everybody racist, as we talked about before. So now, look, the facts aren't on their side, right? If it's even just a matter of opinion, people are going to side with the helpless, weak people being slaughtered by the powerful. That's the whole story of David and Goliath, man. You know what I mean? So what do they think? You know, this is exactly what happens. And as we've talked about before too, I'm pretty sure that from some Zionist point of view, this is all perfectly positive side effect of Israel's brutality, is that it causes increases in anti-Semitism, which they can exploit for the good of Israel and say to other Jews around the world, that's right, see, everybody hates you. They'll never accept you. Move to Israel, which is, you know, their big thing. In fact, there's a specific example of that where Netanyahu, there was I forget exactly which terrorist attack in France. I think it was the truck attack in Nice. Or maybe it was there was a kosher grocery store that was attacked, I believe also. Anyway, in one of those, Netanyahu went to France and said, that's right, French Jews. You're not French, you're Jews. You'll never really be French and they'll never really accept you and you'll never really be part of this country. You are Israelis, you are Jews, you are with me. Come home to Israel. When they're not from Israel, Israel was created after World War II, dude. They're not from there, right? And they cursed him and said, how dare you say we're not Frenchmen, that we're Jews instead of being Frenchmen? What a damn lie that is. How dare you do that to us and in front of all of our friends, right? But Netanyahu doesn't care about that. He cares about him and what he sees as in the interests of greater Israel.
What about this whole thing? I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but I don't think enough. And I didn't look to see what, I don't know, the neocon right is saying about it, which is not all Jews, by the way. They're like the whole Babylon Bee crowd. I'm curious to know what they thought about this Jonathan Pollard thing, where apparently Mike Huckabee, who's the U.S. ambassador to Israel, apparently met with him. Was it more than once after he got out?
Oh, I don't know if it was more than once or not.
It doesn't matter. I mean, once is enough.
Sure. It's amazing.
It was my. So I guess it was once. But now this is like, you know, if you're going to call Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor, because why? Because she wanted to vote on something you didn't want her to vote on. Sorry, that does not constitute a traitor. But this would kind of be that, because this is the definition of. But it's because it's this particular country. It's like, well, God has said that it's all right for that country to spy on you and humiliate you and make you look ridiculous, and for your diplomats to just pal around with them anyway, because that's what God wants. I don't know what religion that is.
I know. Well, and boy, the definitions of treason that get thrown around these days. I mean, here Donald Trump is meeting with the leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria in the Oval Office, like flirting with him and palling around with him and stuff, calling him handsome and, you know, spraying perfume on him and all this stuff. And why? For Israel, because Israel hates the Shiites more. So that's why that's why Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Donald Trump support Al-Qaeda in Syria, because that's what Benjamin Netanyahu insists and the War Party insists on. Then he attacks Marjorie Taylor Greene. What was the thing that she wanted to vote on that he was so against? Releasing the files on Jeffrey Epstein, who, whether he was actually running a blackmail ring for Israel or not, we know he was getting very powerful people laid with underage girls, and sometimes way underage girls, if not like children. And we also know for a fact, due to a now 5-part incredible series at Drop Site News by Ryan Grimm, and scumbag reporter who shall not be named, all about his vast and deep ties to Israel and his close relationship with Ehud Barak and his working with the Israeli government on crucial matters. Like when the Russians won't speak to the Israelis, they send Jeffrey Epstein to go over there and broker a deal to get them talking again, right in the middle of the Syrian war, or building a surveillance state for the Ivory Coast, or working on major mining concessions in Mongolia. Like this guy's got major connections at the highest level with Ehud Barak, the former prime minister and defense minister of Israel. And it was funny. Branko Marcetic, the leftist from Jacobin, he was tweeting out, or, quote tweeted, Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted Branko Marcetic's article about how Jeffrey Epstein tried to intervene in an election over there against Netanyahu. So Netanyahu is saying, see, Epstein didn't support me. And Branko Marcetic is like, isn't that funny that Netanyahu will retweet my work just to prove he's not a child rapist, even though that same article is all about how he's a child killer and how he's killed more children in a higher proportion than any conflict since the Second World War and all of this stuff. And Netanyahu's willing to retweet, yes, of course, I killed tens of thousands of children, but never raped one. That would be Ehud Barak and his friends,
It reminds me of, you were talking about Trump in the White House with somebody you would think he wouldn't be in the White House with, but that reminds me of the meeting he just had with the mayor-elect of New York City, this Mamdani. And what's interesting about that is not simply that Trump went out of his way to be super friendly and courteous, even when the guy openly just called him a fascist to the media present there. That was okay. He can get away with that. Mamdani, one of the reasons that he was disliked by at least some Jewish commentators was that not all, but some, was the argument that he was an anti-Semite and he was anti-Israel and so on and so forth. Well, be that as it may, Trump met with him and was all smiles. Now, right. I don't know that, I think Thomas Massey is probably even milder in what he has to say about Israel. And Massey is far closer to Trump in his, at least Trump's stated views. Yep. And yet he can't get even remotely a courtesy like that.
Yeah, Epstein thing again, right? And by the way, about Mamdani, that a lot of his staff were Jewish, and many, I don't know if it was a plurality, but a substantial minority at least of New York Jews voted for him because they lean left and they were, in fact, probably in support of his anti-Israel message, because there are, religious and secular Jews in America who are extremely anti-Zionist. And you might remember the anecdote where Jerry Nadler, who I'm almost certain is Jewish himself, and as a representative from Brooklyn, there was a resolution about voting in the House to say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And he voted against it. Almost like it was like unanimous consent type of thing, right? But he voted against it. And they went after him and said, how could you vote against a thing? And he said, because the Jews in my district would kill me if I said that anti-Zionism was anti-Semitism. I got tens of thousands of Orthodox Jews in my district who absolutely abhor Zionism. And I represent them too. I wouldn't dare call them anti-Semites. What am I, crazy? And so it just kind of goes to show, like that was the one dissenting vote in the House. And it's a Jewish guy who's afraid of his anti-Zionist Jews, his religious, Orthodox, Torah-believing anti-Zionist Jews in his district that live there by the tens of thousands. It's one of those kind of needle scratch off the record sort of moments where like, oh, wait a minute. I don't like that Overton window because I don't know who Overton is. I like Wood's 3x5 card of allowable opinion. It's the 3x5 card is growing. We are, allowed to discuss these things more and more finally,
Yeah, no, indeed we are. And I just got an idea. I'll share it with you later, Scott. But I just got in fact, I better write it down.
Yeah, if you got the Biden brain I got at this age, man, you better.
If I don't write things down, I'm telling you, they're gone, man. They're gone.
I know.
An idea for a course for the Scott Horton Academy.
Oh, sweet. Yeah,
I got a really good one.
I got a few in mind already, too. We're going to have... This is going to be a long discussion about plans for the Academy for next year, Tom. I got so much cool stuff in mind, dude. It's going to be great.
There is so much truth-telling that is now going to occur.
Dude, and I got specialists, man. And this is what I've always said. I don't have the greatest radio voice. I'm no good at grammar and all that. I stumble and screw up and misspeak all the time. But boy, do I have a good taste in guests. You cannot mess with my Rolodex, man. ScottHorton.org/archives. Check out my posse. Dude, on anything we want, we got the deepest divers, man.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah. So let's take a brief minute before we go on to other topics. What do you got coming down the pike? I mean, you already have some really awesome stuff up there, but what do you got coming up down the pike on ScottHortonAcademy.com?
Okay, well, next up is Adam Francisco. It should be next week here, or this week, as we're speaking. This will probably be coming out just before Thanksgiving. It should be right around now. We should be debuting the brand new course by Adam Francisco, Debunking Christian Zionism. And this is not just dispensationalism, but all aspects. And I haven't seen the courses yet, although many of them are in the Dropbox. I need to review them. But I have read the outline, which you also shared in your email list that one day too.
Yeah.
Which is just the entire history of the Christians and the Jews going back 2,000 years. And I mean that in the nice sense. I'm not talking about the Jews, the conspiracy. I mean all of them since the time of Jesus. That's the whole story that this guy covers here. It's just, I have no idea what he's going to say, but I'm sure it's going to be just an education and a half, dude.
Well, I had him on the Tom Woods Show, and so right. I'll tell you that from now on, people who just sort of are going to try to assume that, well, if you're a Christian, of course you have this particular foreign policy view. And of course you think a certain way about this particular country. And of course you think this or that, are going to have to go up against basically what Adam teaches here, which is just standard lowercase o Orthodox Christianity for thousands of years. I mean, the thing is, I can't do it justice in two sentences because people will say, "Oh, well, that's such and such kind of theology." No. You got to listen. You got to listen to the argument because it's an argument shared by Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther. I mean, this is something they could actually agree on. Martin Luther was the guy who, banged that thing on the door, and he couldn't have been more opposed to a Thomas Aquinas. Right. But understanding what is the story of salvation and how do Jewish people fit into that? And how do believing Christians fit into the idea of the Israel of God that Paul talks about? So all of this is fleshed out as you look through in this course, century upon century of Christian reflection on this question. And you will not find the kind of theology that's coming out of the mouth of Mike Huckabee. You will not.
Well, and it's not. The thing is about him, too, is he's a scholar from college. He's not just a minister saying, this is my sect's interpretation of this. When you're this branch of Methodist, this is the way we look at it. It's not that. It's a historical survey of how the Christians looked at it over all this period of time and that kind of thing. So anyway, I know people are going to get so much out of it. I know people are already so excited about it. People are emailing me and texting me, tweeting to me almost daily. When's the dispensationalist course going up, Horton? You know what I mean? Like, they're really interested in it. So I know it's going to hit. And then, man, this is so much fun. And I probably joked this joke before, too, that I'm really jealous that I hired the great C.J. Kilmer to do a course on how and why Woodrow Wilson is the worst person who ever lived. Worse than Genghis Khan or Tamer Lane, because he is the father of Hitler and Lenin and Stalin and Mao. And for that matter, I guess then Kim and Pol Pot. And for that matter, then the American empire that was built up to contain that communist menace in the post-World War II era, too. And so he absolutely is the worst person ever. And I would have liked to do that course myself, except I got to be realistic, Tom. C.J. Kilmer knows about 10,000 times more about Wilson and 10,000 times more reasons why to hate him than I do. I just carry a giant grudge, but he's got the data. And I'm just so excited for this course. It's going to be fantastic. And people are going to be shocked to find out what an absolute monster this guy was. He's the worst person in the history of mankind. And we will destroy his legacy permanently, forever. And then also my course on the new Cold War with Russia. based more or less off of my book, but an extremely long form survey of American post-Cold War history and into the new Cold War, is coming up. That'll be coming out in December in time for our big Christmas specials and everything. But we should have Adam Francisco and CJ Kilmer in I think that order coming up here before the end of the year. And listen, I'm already getting so much great response from, of course, my wonderful courses on Middle East wars, but then the great Jim Bovard on Waco and the drug wars and the TSA and stealing documents from the World Bank and whatever, dude. All the great Jim Bovard antics and great coverage of the state. Ramsey Baroud on the reality of the Israel-Palestine conflict from the Palestinians' point of view, from a brilliant Palestinian intellectual's point of view, and great storyteller and writer and journalist and historian and wonderful guy, the great Ramsey Baroud. And then Bill Bupert, my good friend, U.S. Army officer and hardcore, anarchist, libertarian with the rest of us, and great debunker of the U.S. Army's completely ridiculous and bankrupt and failed counterinsurgency strategy, and a lot more than that. And so his course is not on Coin, although we're probably going to be doing that in the next year. But it's on the Trail of Tears, he calls it, American Stalemate and Military Defeat since 1945. And just about the absolute folly of American imperialism and all of their wars in the Cold War and since. And he's just so dang good. And I'm getting so much great response from everybody who's already signed up for the courses. Of course, we've got the phone app. So people, if they're driving their truck or whatever down the highway, they can turn the screen off and just listen, and all of that. And I don't know, it's going great so far. I'm so excited about it. And I'm keeping secret other names that I have in mind for people to bring on for the next year. That's all to come, but stay on the edge of your seats, folks, because we're going to have some really good stuff, even on top of what I just said, too.
Hey, everyone, this open enrollment, don't make the same mistakes again, falling back into the same dysfunctional American health insurance system. The Woods family doesn't play that game anymore. Affordable Care Act, get out of here. We ditched the old-fashioned way and embraced crowd health, the alternative to the crazy American health insurance world. Same with my business partner, whose knee surgery was just taken care of by crowd health. Same with a bunch of my mastermind guys. Some of the most impressive people in Wood's world use crowd health, and for good reason. We're talking health care for under $100. You got access to a team of health bill negotiators, low-cost prescription and lab testing tools, as well as a database of low-cost, high-quality doctors vetted by Crowd Health. And if something major happens, you pay the first $500, then the crowd steps in to help fund the rest. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members just like you who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. The system is betting you'll stay stuck in the same overpriced, overcomplicated mess. And this year it's even more complicated because most of the Affordable Care Act subsidies expire, which means your prices are going sky high. This open enrollment, take your power back. Join Crowd Health to get started today for $99 for your first 3 months using code WOODS at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code WOODS. Crowd Health is not insurance. Opt out. Take your power back. This is how we win. Joincrowdhealth.com, code WOODS. Everyone, if you're like me, you've been watching the Fed inflate the dollar into oblivion while politicians bungle trade policy and rack up historic amounts of debt. And you're wondering how to protect what you've worked so hard to build. That's why I want to talk to you about Monetary Metals, a company doing something truly revolutionary with gold. We all know gold is a safe haven asset, but let's face it, most gold just sits there in a vault, not doing much. It holds its value over time, but it doesn't grow. What if I told you there's a way to not only own physical gold, but also earn a yield on it, paid in gold, every single month? That's exactly what I do with Monetary Metals. I lease my gold with them and earn an annual yield, around 4% in gold, not in paper currency. I keep my ounces, and every month I get more. Think about it. You still benefit from any price appreciation, like what we've been seeing in 2025, with gold pushing past all-time highs, and you also get paid more ounces of gold along the way. That's what makes this model so exciting. It's a genuine breakthrough. For the first time in decades, gold is functioning as a yield-bearing asset, just like in the classical gold standard days. The Fed can print dollars, they can't print gold. It's time to start growing your wealth in ounces, not just hoping for the best with fiat. Go to monetary-metals.com/woods to learn more and see how you can start earning a gold income too. That's monetary-metals.com/woods. Well, it being Black Friday, might as well get big discounts. So ScottHortonAcademy.com. I can't encourage you enough to do that. Let's talk about a couple other foreign policy things really quick that are in the headlines. I mean, I got the most use out of antiwar.com back in 2003, because it wasn't around for the first Iraq war, but it was around for 2003. And I just wanted to know what was really happening. And I just didn't know. I knew that I could trust antiwar.com, and I knew that I could not trust CBS News. So I can't tell you how valuable that was. And then there was a time, now I can't pinpoint exactly what years it would have been, when foreign policy, for a brief time, kind of faded as, it was front and center, super important, obviously, for years after 9/11. But then it was, if that was something you were interested in, you would follow it closely. But I didn't feel compelled to go to antiwar.com every day, in maybe 2014 or something, the way I did in 2003. But now here we are back again. Like it's not quite 2003, but it's like there's so many stories to keep an eye on, like what's going on with Israel and Iran, because that thing is far from over. What's going on in Ukraine? What's going on in Venezuela? Like, geez, Scott. Like I don't want to have to care. That was the whole point. I thought the whole point of America First was that I shouldn't have to care about these things. Yeah, because they shouldn't be things.
It's such a huge irony in the whole thing that is the point. We need to abolish the empire so we can go back to you and me minding our own business too. Enough of this. Why should any Texan have to specialize in Middle East politics? Yeah. Only because our government has got us up to our eyeballs in things over there, Which, by the way, there's been, and you're right, and I don't blame you. It's the whole society, ebbs and flows with this stuff, but we've had nothing but war after war after war over there. In 2014, we were overthrowing the government in Ukraine and starting a massive civil war that is now, going on to this day, now escalated to such an incredible degree. We're backing the bin Ladenite caliphate in Syria and Iraq, and then launching Iraq War III to destroy it again. You know what I mean? In fact, you had me on the show in 2014 to talk about that. I remember well. But just the point is that, like, our government, no matter how exhausted we are with this stuff, our government just continues to switch from one conflict to another to another. We're getting out of Afghanistan, fine. We're doubling down in Ukraine then. And even, hell, we got to admit, we're definitely going to lose Ukraine. Well, fine, let's go ahead and help Al-Qaeda break out of their pen in the Idlib province and sack Damascus. That was a year ago. I think that's going to end up being a war. If that guy is such a stooge, then his own guys are going to kill him. I mean, they are a bunch of bin Ladenite kooks over there, in his ruling circle. So I just don't know. I mean, again, that is what Israel wants, is that we support the bin Ladenites there because they hate the Shiites more. They hate Hezbollah more. But are we really going to have a bin Ladenite run Syria for the medium term here? And America's just going to, because that's going to cause other problems. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm worried about that one. We're still in the middle of a problem there. But
what do you think about, is something going to happen in Venezuela, or is that going to be defused?
That one's so funny to me because, first of all, they've killed like a dozen boats full of people, and they don't know who. Maybe some of them really are drug smugglers. Some of them couldn't possibly be. They're just fishermen and whoever. And even if they are drug smugglers, then they're just nobodies driving a boat. It's not like they're some kingpins or whatever the hell. It's totally illegal to be murdering people this way. And it's like they're trying to gin up the tempo of kind of acceptability of this violence, that somehow now they're going to bring it on to Venezuelan shore and it's going to be a smaller step up from bombing the boats or something. The New York Times ran this long piece about the different options that were being presented to Trump about, well, maybe we could try to do a regime change, but maybe we could just do some limited special operations missions. And then there's like a full-scale war with infantry. And the thing is, Venezuela is a big country with a massive population. We're talking about an Iraq War II level effort if you're going to actually put troops on the ground and have a regime change. So It's just nuts. And there is no casus belli at all. Like, that's why it's hard to be alarmist about it, because like, how can we go to war with Venezuela? We have no reason to go to war with Venezuela. Then again, we got 2 aircraft carriers, our Star Destroyers in orbit right off of their coast right now they said, the Wall Street Journal had this thing about how it was all highest level special operations teams and air forces and everything headed down there. So sure seemed like they were getting ready for something. And then I have not been following I really need to get back into the habit of reading the damn Wall Street Journal every day and this kind of thing, because they do have insight into stuff like this. Like, what is the discussion going on in the White House about this? Like, what is the decision making? How close was Trump? Did he change his mind? He wanted to go a week ago, but now he doesn't anymore. All that kind of stuff is important. And I'm not as up to date on that as I should be. But there's just no reason in the world to do this. And as bad as Maduro is, and he is, it's America's economic war. And, I know libertarians get mad at me for saying this because they just hate communism so much, or whatever. It's fine. But look, Bush Jr. launched a massive economic war against this country starting back in 2005. They have a massive sanctions regime against them. And it's responsible for some percentage of the poverty of that country. It's not just full communism, as bad as it is. But it's also America's economic war. This is a huge part of the reason for the Venezuelan migrant crisis that we have in this country. Remember the controversy over Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado. And it was Martha Raddatz going, well, it's just a few apartment buildings. And J.D. Vance going, lady, listen to yourself. Are you crazy? But why are they here? Why are they here? Because America's helped to destroy their country. And so that's a huge part of it. And it's got to be, I could see in Trump's mind, like, oh, I want to do something great like McKinley and kick somebody's ass and steal something for America and make a profit. You know what I mean? Do something big. And like, McKinley's his hero, not Grover Cleveland. Like, he wants to he's Andrew Jackson, not Thomas Jefferson in that way. So the only thing then is, and W. Bush had this too, right? I want to do something great. To be a great leader, you have to have a great war. You have to do something big, And then the only saving grace then is if some or one or some of his advisors can tell him that, like, no, sir, this will destroy your legacy. This is not going to go well. This will be your Vietnam. This will be your Iraq. This will be a disaster. Be afraid. Don't pull that trigger, But can we count on anyone telling him that? Or that he's going to listen to this guy instead of that guy? I mean, I really don't know. The fact that, this is to be expected, but it is bothersome that you have, judging by Twitter and whatever, you have Trump supporters who are willing to fall in line behind this real quickly. If he's the leader, they'll follow. If he's killing people, it must be because they're drug lords. They must be guilty. Oh, I can't believe you take the drug lord side. They say, oh, I can't believe he supports Saddam Hussein and terrorism. Or they're already, some of them are already lining up like that. So, drugs are bad. Okay. So no one's going to argue about that, even though the DEA says that the fentanyl is not coming from Venezuela at all. At all. That's Trump's own government. Well, whatever. You can argue about how under control his own government is. But that's what the current government of the United States says, is that actually the fentanyl is not coming from Venezuela. So it couldn't be that. And we know it's about the oil. And see, I want to know, and it's my fault that I don't know the real answers to this, but I had read, Tom, where Chevron and Citgo both were saying, no more sanctions. We have some business going on here, and we'd like to keep the status quo. Don't destabilize the situation by adding any more sanctions, please. Which makes sense. But then it was Harrison Berger in the American Conservative magazine wrote a thing about how Exxon supports the Center for Science and International Security, and they keep hawking it up and pushing for regime change. So I don't know if that's a real direct one-to-one connection, but it sounds like this could literally be like a corporate fight between Chevron and Exxon that we're talking about here. Chevron wants to buy the oil. Exxon wants to steal it and thinks that they can get the government to do it for them. Now, again, I'm not 100% certain about that, And like, I'd like to know, hell, Chevron may be in on it. You know what I mean? I don't know. But that was the last I read, was that Chevron and Citgo were pushing for normalization or at least status quo. And then Harrison had that great piece about, boy, it looks like Exxon has a agenda here.
If only we had Murray Rothbard around and he hadn't died 30 years ago.
Man,
he would know
the alive right now. God dang, dude.
The ins and outs of all of this.
Imagine. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I've wondered about his commentary about, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, about the Israel lobby, whatever, Rothbard.
Everything. Yeah,
this is when we needed him.
And you know what's funny is, I know this from Eric, that a lot of Murray's best stuff on foreign policy was actually Justin, and vice versa. I mean, like back in earlier days, obviously Murray died in 95, but in earlier days, they would put each other's name on their writing a lot and kind of ghostwrite articles for each other and work on stuff like that. So no surprise there, you know.
Well, can you at least give us 500 feet from the air overview of what we should think about what's going on with European leaders being upset that Trump is allegedly leaving Ukraine out to dry?
Yeah. This is so frustrating. I'll tell you, Tom. You know, it's sort of like when they lied us into war with Iraq. It was the weapons of mass destruction and the ties to Al-Qaeda, right? The lies behind this war are, one, that Putin woke up on the wrong side of the bed one morning and decided he wanted to be an imperialist and steal some land. And two, that if we just help him enough, Ukraine can win this war. When that's just not true. It's never been true. And I guess I'll admit on behalf of some of myself and some of my fellow skeptic friends, that Ukraine has held out a lot longer than we thought they would. And American Western support has a lot to do with that. But the reality is, Ukraine has not had a single successful push on the ground in any meaningful sense since September of 2022. And that's it. They made a brilliant feint in Kherson and then moved and kicked all the Russians out of Kharkiv and back into Luhansk. And then they made a separate move down in Kherson and kicked the Russians out of the third of it or so that's west of the river. Great. And then for revenge, Vladimir Putin announced that he was officially annexing Zaporozhye and Kherson, as well as Donetsk and Luhansk, and that the war was going to continue until he now achieved his more maximalist gains than what they are goals and aims, which were more than they had been before. And then it's been all downhill since then, with the failed, supposed escalation of 2023 in the summer that went nowhere. And then we've had the Russians slowly and steadily chewing up Ukrainian forces and confiscating Ukrainian land ever since then. The city of Podsworth is falling as we speak. Now is completely surrounded and is being taken. And here the European officials are saying that Trump is selling out the Ukrainians by proposing a deal with the Russians that simply recognizes these facts. They're saying he's leaving them high and dry. What? Because I think in one of their things, they were even at least implying that Ukraine could still win, that they could somehow drive the Russians out of they own all of Luhansk and parts of Sumy and Kharkiv, as well as, I guess it's like 80% of Donetsk now, and fully 2/3 of Zaporozhye and 2/3 of Kherson, and all of Crimea that they've owned since 2014. Ukraine cannot reverse that. Donald Trump making a peace deal with the Russians based on the reality of the map and the unstoppable juggernaut of Russian military force is not selling them out. What's selling them out is pretending all this time that Ukraine could win if only we help them stay in the war longer. And I'm actually really kicking myself, Tom, because I've only seen this quote in the last couple of days. This is not in my book. I don't know how I missed this, but it's a quote from Zelensky from March of 2022, sounding exactly like me, He says there are some in the West who would like very much to see a prolonged war. They think that it'll weaken Russia, even if it destroys Ukraine. Yep, that's right. And then he signed the deal with the devil, Joe Biden, and sold his country down the river and got it destroyed, lost a fifth of it or more, got hundreds of thousands of people killed, got and a massive exodus of the population out of the country, massive brain drain, massive, demographic destruction when they were already in a massive demographic crisis, replacement, crisis there. And so they're just wrecked. They're just wrecked. And he knew it all along, and he went along with it anyway. And now Donald Trump, I'll tell you what, if Donald Trump could get the Russians to sign on to this deal that has them leaving a third of Zaporozhye and a third of Kherson in Ukrainian hands, that would be a huge win for the West and the Ukrainian side, and a huge climb down from Vladimir Putin. Now, I'm not promising that or anything. I don't know. I really don't know the truth of who all negotiated this deal and under what authority they did. I mean, Witkoff clearly worked with a Russian on it, but it's not clear how much authority he really had to agree to any of these things. I read in the Washington Times where the Kremlin said, hey, this is the first we're seeing of this thing, and we'll look at it, but we're not signing off on this. So I am not saying that I believe that Putin would do that. Although I can tell you that I had read in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks back, a couple of months ago maybe, before the Alaska thing. The journal said that they had sources in Moscow who said that they might be willing to consider that. That is, calling the lines where they are in Zaporozhye and Kherson, rather than taking them all. So that sounds like it is within the realm of possibility, if not likelihood. But that would be a massive concession when the Russians are winning, and they can just keep winning. They don't have to stop. They don't have to stop. They're not in some economic crisis that says that they have to stop. They're not in a manpower crisis that says that they have to stop. If they're going to stop, it's because it's a favor to Donald Trump, who wants the war to end and is trying to get them to say, okay, then. They have no other real incentive to do it, which means also that he has to be able to promise them a package of concessions in terms of normalization with America and the rest of the West that I don't think he can pull off. I think he would have to, take dictatorial powers over Europe to force them to go along with the kind of normalization with Russia that would be required. And I don't think he can do it. And I don't think that they're going to give in to him. I mean, maybe if he threatens to leave NATO, if they don't go along or something like that, something massive like that. Otherwise, they're going to do everything they can to ruin any kind of deal. And although, I guess the thing is, things are so bad, Tom, that there are a lot of sanctions to repeal. There are a lot of restrictions on, American corporations dealing with Russia to be lifted. And a lot of kind of joint cooperation on basic stuff like they always do. I'm a libertarian. I'm not advocating it, but I'm just saying the status quo be working together on counterterrorism and counter-drug stuff and stuff like that. There's so much of that stuff that could be immediately re-implemented in the name of normalization, including all the treaties that they've torn up that they could get back in. The Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, START 2, START the Conventional Forces in Europe Treaty, which is huge, which the Russians left. The Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF Treaty. Let's do a whole giant package. I don't know if anybody would ever listen to me about this. It seems like a big deal. You bring Putin to Washington. You take him to dinner. You take him to the ball game. And you make friends out of him. And then you sit him down and you say, let's get back in all those treaties that idiot George W. Bush tore up and that idiot Donald Trump tore up, and get back in the INF and the rest right now. And I think Putin would go along with that. I think he's always been a supporter of arms control and these kinds of negotiations with the West. And after all, he's made this whole new generation of nuclear weapons, but that stuff is expensive, man. And I think he'd just as easily negotiate it away if the Americans would play Ronald Reagan to his Gorbachev and meet him halfway. And I think that Trump could do that. I mean, after all, they say only Nixon could go to China. Only Ronald Reagan could deal with Gorbachev the way that he did. Well, and his successor, Bush Sr. Maybe only Trump can deal with Putin, you know, now that Russiagate is finally over,
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to stop them from saying predictable things.
Right.
I mean, but at some point, who cares?
And that's the thing, is he's just surrounded by a bunch of deadbeats. If he would just listen to his own self, he's right about this stuff. You remember when he first came into power, he was saying, man, we should make a deal with the Russians and the Chinese to slash our nuclear arsenals and slash our military budgets. Why pivot from the Middle East to major power conflict? Let's just not have power conflict with anybody. Let's just make money and trade and get along with Russia and China and everybody too. Yeah. Now there's a guy, if that was the real him, I'd vote for him. and that is the real him when he doesn't have all his courtiers around him telling him what to think instead. You know, that he does have that kind of basic vision that like, I don't know. Who needs conflict when we could have partnerships?
Well, a lot of people feel like if only I could have this version of him or that version of him, but it's like a corollary of Horton's law. You know, Horton's law, you know better than anybody, is that politicians tend to keep the bad promises and forget all about the good ones. But then there's also when there seems to be more than one version of a politician, you're going to get the worst one.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. There's another corollary to that too, which is when the politicians take the worst hawk's advice, you can always count on them to ignore even those same hawks' terrible warnings about what might happen if they're to do so.
That's the one thing they'll ignore. They'll listen to everything else except the warnings.
1 through 7 of this thing are great. We didn't read the last part under the big bold disclaimer.
Oh, man. Scott, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. By the time people hear this, maybe you've already had your Thanksgiving, but doesn't matter. I wished it to you before it happened. And I hope people... Too. Thank you. I have no doubt that we will. This year we have 2 turkeys, so this is to guarantee we have a lot of leftovers. One of the few days I really want to have a lot of leftovers. But what you should also do, I don't know, this is not a good look, Scott, but in addition to enjoying time with your loved ones, you should also go out and buy things, but particularly one thing, and that is a subscription to the Scott Horton Academy, doggone it.
Oh, yeah. And listen, first of all, it's on sale because it's Tom Woods Black Friday special. Yeah. So you get a great deal on it. And the fact of the matter is, it makes a great gift. This is what your wife, husband, brother, sister, brother-in-law, uncle, grandpa wanted for Christmas was Scott Horton talking for 30 hours in a row about America's Middle East policy.
Yeah, right. I mean, of course. We sit around when it comes time to give gifts, and we struggle to think of what is the perfect gift for this person, or what's a reasonable gift. I mean, either the person has everything, or you don't know what the person wants. The person's no help. Oh, don't give me anything. Look, I'm going to give you something, so that's no help. So just do something like this. I mean, no one will expect it. It's valuable but immaterial, so it's not going to clutter the person's house. It is the perfect thing to give.
It really is. And you know what? Especially for homeschool types too, man. I've gotten a bunch of contacts with people saying, well, I know what we're teaching this semester. So
could you imagine your high school student will be able to smash Dan Crenshaw at a moment's notice?
Yeah, thanks. And all the Crenshaws to come.
And you know what? The Crenshaws to come.
We're having fun here, but Tom, like what you said about this is really right. Like the purpose of this thing is hopefully not for people to just be entertained and like learn a little something from me. But the point is, when you say this is Scott Horton slowed down, the point is so everybody else can catch up.
Yeah.
So that, look, we can all really do this together. And quite frankly, I know people make a big deal about the fact that I'm like good at names and dates and whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I'm really not that smart. I just don't drink. And, so I could be dumber. But the thing is that I'm obviously like just some regular guy from nowhere. And the only reason I'm good at this stuff is because I got a vendetta. I think it's important and I want to stick it to them. So for everybody else who feels that same way, I'm proof that y'all are all capable of this too. That's it. And then with just say a few thousand more of me, Tom, then the war party's licked, man. They can, Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and Boeing can finance all the think tanks in the world they want. They can't overcome an army of libertarian non-interventionists who really know what they're talking about out in the world.
Yeah, that's right. And that is already changing things. It's already, it's a rumble that is going to is going to get louder and more powerful. So the site, ScottHortonAcademy.com. Everybody go check it out. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, and by the way, don't forget to go on vacation with Scott and me, TomWoodsCruise.com. But you can wait till after Black Friday for that. Right now, you got to go to ScottHortonAcademy.com. But then you have to go on vacation with the two of us. So both of those things work in tandem together. All right. See you all later, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.